So Canon and Nikon have been busy, but Sony's next moves and a new Tamron Super Zoom are some big stories to watch. We've got fresh clues on timing, the tech, and how much real-world access we'll actually get as creators. So let's jump in. So if you've been waiting for a travel zoom that goes a little wider without getting a little larger, then this one is gonna be the one you wanna look at. Tamron has officially announced the 25 to 200mm f2.8 to 5.6 Di3 VXD G2 for the Sony E-mount full frame. I love Tamron's naming scheme, it's so great. Now this is the successor to the 28 to 200 f2.8/5.6, and it keeps the 200mm reach while expanding the wide end to 25mm, all while maintaining a compact design. Now, inside, you're looking at 18 elements with 14 groups, a 9-blade aperture, and Tamron's VXD linear motor for fast, precise autofocus. Now, there's a single customized function button, a 67mm filter thread that matches many of Tamron's Sony lenses, and a close-up capability at the minimum focusing distance of 0.16 meters. That's at 25mm, with 0.8 meters at the telephoto end at 200. Pricing is landing at $899 here in the United States, 849 euros in Europe, and 729 pounds in the UK, with shipping slated for late November 2025. The headline here though is the practicality. Going from 28 to 25 gives you just a little bit of more wide. We always wanna go wider, especially when you're in tight spaces or you need the grand view for landscapes without potentially sacrificing on the long end, and it doesn't add a lot of heft. And since the filter size stays the same and aligns with a lot of the rest of Tamron's lineup, if you're already invested in a lot of filter accessories at 67mm, it's gonna be friendly for sharing those filters across your lenses. Now, we don't have any early reviews just yet, so we'll have to wait to see how the optical quality does in these updates and how it stacks up against the original 28 to 200. But on paper, the autofocus and the image quality improvements are promising for anyone who wants a single lens travel solution. So if you're considering this versus the 28 to 200, does that 3mm difference really make it for you? I'm curious where you land. Next, Sony's mid-range is continuing to be their kind of engine for their lineup. The company and their timing philosophy is pretty clear here, and according to Petapixel, an interview with senior IP&S product manager for Sony France sheds a light on how Sony thinks about APS-C, full frame, and the upcoming models that they're expected to release, like the A7 IV. And they pointed to the A7 III and the A7 IV as standouts. They remain among some of the most balanced and best-selling cameras in Sony's range, offering a strong mix of photo, video, and budget, right? Their prices are great. I see tons of photographers out there with the A7 III still to this day. But preferences do shift by region. In Asia, for example, the A7C II is the most popular camera, indicating that maybe the left justified EVF is part of the reason there. And in France specifically, Sony is estimating that 35 to 36% of the market share in full frame is theirs, while acknowledging without a central EVF tend to be less popular in Europe. And on the expected A7 IV, Sony is saying that they don't just refresh models to hit a calendar. They like to release new bodies when there's a major innovation, with an example being the A9 III's global shutter as a real generational improvement, a real shift in what they can offer in these bodies. So while the A7 IV is turning 4 years old, Sony's approach suggests that the A7 V will aim for a clear, substantive upgrade when it shows up. Sony also noted that the A1II's strong traction among professionals, with demand leading to an immediate short supply, with many Alpha 1 users upgrading to the A1II for its maturity. And on the video focus side of things, Sony is paying close attention to Canon's EOS C50 as well as Nikon ZR, but they've emphasized that they have pride in their FX range and its workflow advantages, signaling out the FX2. Though that is to be expected, I wouldn't expect a Sony rep or executive to say publicly like, yeah, no, the C50, the ZR, we give up. The FX series is dead. It is the killer, as it is on many of those YouTube thumbnails. The message is that Sony isn't chasing specs. not for its own sake at least. The focus is on what works in the real environment. And that's the case even for the premium compact space, right? You get the $5,100 RX1R Mark III, which is finding buyers, which underscores the fact that there is a market out there for niche high-end compact cameras. So the through line here is that Sony has a measured cadence, and whether they update a camera, they want it to be a tangible step forward, not just it's been a year or it's been 2 years or it's been 4 years, it's time to come out with the next one. And that's a helpful lens for reading things that might be coming up in the next few months. Another update is in New York City, photographers are getting access to free hands-on events with Sony, and they've partnered with Adorama. So on October 26th and 27th on the 6th floor loft in New York City, they're hosting back-to-back sessions built around real-world shooting, mentorship, access to gear. Day one is actually the second annual Student and Educator Sony Rooftop event, and they're expecting to have creative sets including models, dancers, characters, plus a live band, just lots of opportunities to shoot, and students can borrow Sony cameras and lenses, get hands-on guidance from Sony artisan Kesha Lambert and Sony Alpha ambassador Eric Hercules. You can even receive a free SD card courtesy of SanDisk while the supplies last. There'll be some deals, some trade-in opportunities, on-site personal shooting support, as well as some fun stuff from Adorama. They're only letting 200 people in at a time to keep things kind of flowing and going, and they're going to be doing raffles and all that sort of stuff. It feels very much like a convention style event kind of crammed into a smaller space. And I wish more brands did this, to be quite honest. Though I will point to events like WPPI where companies like Canon are very present, and whether you are a CPS member or not, you can actually check out Canon gear, take it around the convention floor, and they do have Canon Ambassadors of Light there to help out, and there's mentorship and all that sort of stuff there. But this seems a lot more on the education side, less necessarily on the convention, sales side of things, although obviously Adorama is going to be selling stuff. This is just a cool event, and my hope is that this is something that more companies do to reach out to younger students and up-and-coming creators to give them an opportunity to try out their gear. So if you're local or going to be in New York City and you plan to borrow equipment, make sure to bring your ID and keep your kit lean. Now, this next one is interesting. We've got a patent that's pointing to eye-controlled autofocus inside the viewfinder, as well as some additional insights from Signa on supply and design trade-offs. Now, according to Sony Alpha Rumors, Sony has published a patent titled Viewfinder and Imaging Device, describing a detection for a photographer's eye and its movement to select AF points while looking through the EVF. The system projects light onto the corona. Nope, the corona is something that the sun has. The cornea, we have a cornea in our eye, not a corona. And it analyzes the reflected signal to determine the gaze and direction. The design aims to maintain accuracy without increasing the size of the viewfinder or the camera body by confining the light emission to a narrow zone around the pupil. Now, the patent addresses issues that have affected previous eye tracking approaches, like the need for a larger optical path and interference from eyelids or eye variation. And it does so by focusing the detection on a more targeted way. Now, if this makes it into a product, it would be Sony's first time doing true eye-controlled AF implementation, and it could meaningfully accelerate focus selection and precision in fast-paced shooting. Now, the write-up mentions a future camera, like a potential A9 IV, as a natural candidate, though that technology is super popular in Canon cameras like the R3, the R5 Mark II, and the R1. I tried these features out in the R1 and the R5 Mark II. They were cool. Honestly, I found the face subject detection to be much better, along with people priority. I found that that was actually a more effective thing, but I don't shoot a lot of sports, so maybe that was part of it. And then in the other report that I mentioned, managing director in France for Sigma talked about production constraints and some of the choices that they're making as far as lenses. So on the 300 to 600 f4, their sports lens, they noted that there was a global shortage and a factory output of roughly 100 units per month, which is making scaling very difficult. And for the 35 f1.2, their new art lens, he explained that it's really been the improved in-camera correction algorithms that have come out in the last 4 or 5 years that have allowed Sigma to reduce the number of optical elements, especially those used to correct distortion or vignetting. So they can actually create more compact, lighter lenses as a result of the improvements that are coming in these cameras. Although one thing that I note about that I guess, design philosophy is that if you do end up putting those lenses on older cameras that potentially don't have that profile correction, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that unless you're doing it in post. And when discussing new Chinese competitors, Sigma isn't afraid. Though they don't want to be overconfident, they believe that there's still a lot of time before those brands close in on them. Now, between Sony's eye-controlled concept and Sigma's pragmatic notes on production and design, the takeaway is that meaningful innovation often hinges on efficiency and really bringing real solutions to market, not just delivering specs. And finally, pretty much everyone is looking at the next Sony announcement window, as we've been talking about for, I think now, a month or more, with the rumor mill really starting to churn up, even as we say that Sony isn't just pushing out new cameras for the sake of pushing out new cameras, they're pushing out a new camera. So we're expecting a major Sony announcement between mid-November and early December. We're expecting 2 products, the A7 IV and a 100-400 GM2. Now the A7 IV details are still a little rough, but here's what is being reported right now by some trusted sources. The camera has been registered in Indonesia, and that version is being manufactured in Thailand. We've got a leaked image that suggests 33 megapixel sensor, which again we believe is a tweaked version of the A7 IV sensor, not the exact same sensor, though some other folks are reporting that it might be a new partially stacked design, similar to what we saw in the Z6 III. Now, it's unclear which version they're going to go with, but we do know that there's going to be new AI chip in the camera, going in that same processing direction as what we saw in the A1 II. Now, the body is said to follow the A7R5's design, including the 4-way fully articulating screen and similar controls, with pricing expected to land close to $3,000. Timing-wise, the announcement is likely in November at the earliest, with shipments beginning likely not until Q1 of 2026. Now, if the 100-400 GM2 also appears as a part of this announcement, that's going to give Sony's telephoto lineup a big refresh alongside the rumored mid-range full-frame. Now, as always with rumors, details can shift. We still don't know exactly about this sensor, but the cadence does match Sony's philosophy from earlier. They release things when there's a clear step forward. And if you ask me, they release things when the exclusivity with Nikon runs out. So if you're weighing an upgrade, are you going to make the jump to the A7 V? Is that a must buy? What are you looking for as far as sensor tech? I'll be watching for a firm date and I'll let you know as far as that is concerned and as soon as I know. Now, if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can consider becoming a channel member. It's $1. If you're looking to book a photo or video session, all the details are down below. Down there also, all my gear lists. Now, those are affiliate links. They do support the channel, but the easiest way to support the channel, as always, is just to hit like and subscribe. Those buttons are both free, and I really appreciate it if you did that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.